Thank you, thank you.
So just to start out, we got together and made a rough kind of outline. This kind of be a little bit impromptu. And one of the things when I was teaching classes, I always talked about what my experience was, because I'd gone to real estate seminars where I said, well, what's their experience? And they said, well, they speak a lot and they do it well. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make you an authority on anything. It might make you a influencer, but it's not making you an authority on anything. So I thought we'd first just lay out our experience, because we come from different angles to the real estate market. And so I thought we'd just lay that out first, so we get a context of what our experiences were. And then we can go into types of investing. We got some things to talk about, and then definitely questions is really what we're intent on doing, is answering specific questions to your specific situations if you have them. So you guys want to give them a little outline?
Yes, this is definitely very interactive. So if you have questions, don't hesitate. You're welcome to reach out, ask questions, and we want to participate and share. You want to tell them a little bit about us?
You can start.
Well, Hillary and I, we've been in real estate since 2016. When we decided to go into real estate full force at that time, I had just proposed to Hillary. We had a baby on the way, and then we said we were going to go gun-ho into real estate.
And we both quit our jobs. We got married, quit our jobs, had a baby on the way.
We did all the things
in like a month.
It was like 3 months.
And got married. And yeah.
So since then, we've been in real estate. We've done a lot of wholesaling where you contract properties, flip the contracts. We've acquired property. We've done owner finance rentals. We've done a full range of properties. And Hillary's also a broker.
I am. So I help individuals buy and sell properties.
So we're fully integrated at this point.
When I met Marco, I didn't know anything about real estate, but he was already in it. He was already an agent and working with investors, and I kind of had to jump in real quick and jump onto his dream of investing. So I did everything I had to do to learn. I did seminars and got my license really quickly, and lots of studying. So yeah, I had to do all the work.
She made it happen.
Sorry, I'm a little distracted.
Yeah, we have a peanut gallery, literally.
Yeah. Well, so I started out on the different end of it. I started in the construction business. I grew up in the construction business, worked in the warehouse, worked in the field, estimator, director of operations. And then I left. That was my father's business, and I left that because he wasn't going to leave. He was going to leave feet first, so I wasn't going to wait for him to die. So I left that and then got into, when Katie and I got married, she was in a PhD program, and so we would buy houses, fix them up, and sell it, and then pay for school, buy another house, fix it up, sell it, pay for school. We're still married. And we did. So we were flipping houses that was back when nobody knew what that meant. It was like, what are you doing, flipping houses? What is that? Nobody knew what that was. And so we were doing that, and then got into, what happened was when everybody started getting into it, they took all the juice out of it. There was the money to maybe people were doing it for given the level of risk. We were like, it's just not possible. So I left that and I went into finance, and I was an equity options trader, where I met my partners. And in 2000, the crash of 2000, I don't know if a lot of you remember that, but the crash of 2000, they kind of ran us off the floor. And my four partners, we all went into business buying and holding. Then we weren't flipping; we were buying and holding properties. And so, but we did. I had a real estate license, general contractor's license. We did everything from the construction, the buying, construction, management, and we continued to manage the properties. So we squeezed every dollar out of it that was there. So that's how
we're a one-stop shop. Sounds like.
So yeah, we did everything. Yeah, absolutely. And so. So that's where we ended up, and my partners were still in, and they were all former traders, so we could talk risk, which is a big deal in real estate about risk, and so risk was a common language if you're trading. You got to talk about risk, and so we could talk risk and understand what we were talking about. So then we've owned properties for over 20 years. At one point, we've been trying to get out of them. At one point, we were up to 16 different properties. So. But we're walking our way out now. So,
So you're heavily invested in San Francisco right now, right? With your properties?
Not in the East Bay is
East Bay.
where all our stuff is. Yeah, in Oakland. So, and then and we have we actually have property in 4 different states. We're in Nevada, California, Alabama, and then we own our house here. So we're all
So you just need something in New York to get all the corners, take over the U.S.
Yeah. So yeah, I think so. Yeah, because we have to file taxes in 3 different states. So
We at least don't have that problem.
yeah.
But we do have a lot of properties to file taxes for every year, which is a nightmare in itself.
We're based pretty much just San Antonio for our properties and the surrounding areas. And we originally were very focused in San Antonio when we were first acquiring properties. But over the last few years, really since COVID, when prices were going up, we were looking for more affordable options. And that led us to some opportunities around the south side of San Antonio and kind of the surrounding areas. And so that's kind of where we've been recently, but we really just look for properties based on whatever numbers that come up and pursue those. On our list there, what did we write for the first thing to go over?
So, well, we were talking about the, and we've covered that. So, the buy and hold properties versus the
What attracted you to buy and hold? Why was that you said you started flipping. Why did you transition?
Because the TV shows took all the money out of flipping houses because everybody thought they could do it, and they were doing it for a risk. I talked to guys who are doing $500,000, $600,000 houses, putting $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 into them, and making $20,000. That's ridiculous. That you can't do it for that level of risk. It's just not. So we got out of it, and then when I met my partners, we got into buying and holding. We bought most of our properties in 2008, 2009 when the crash hit. And we were out buying stuff that had traded at $500,000, $600,000. We were buying them for $150,000 to $180,000. So, but they needed work. I mean, we jumped in and fixed them up, but that's, we bought that, and that's the stuff we still hold. So,
and actually, quick tidbit. So Hillary and I started real estate together in 2016. However, I had been in real estate since 2009. So I got into the industry right after the crash. And when that happened, I really got the perspective of the aftermath, not really like the peak and down. It was really afterwards. And something that really stuck out to me was the fact that there were so many properties at significant discounts, especially when you compare it today. And when there's a downturn in the market in real estate, it's a great buying opportunity for high quality assets. So what I mean by that is like either new build properties. So at that time, it was like 2005 or newer were like really key properties to pursue, or properties in really excellent areas like A-class type areas, because those properties are basically on sale, and those are great properties to grab and hold for a long-term perspective if that's part of your strategy.
If you're going back to flippers, when the market is down, I always said you're better off doing flippers when the market's down, because the spread between the stuff that's good and done, it gets wider from the stuff that needs fixing. So when the market's hot, everybody will pay up and say, "Oh, I'll just get a contractor to do it." So the spread gets really tight. When it's a down market, the bad stuff goes down farther. So you get a bigger spread. So you're better off doing flippers if you're going to do them, and when it's in a down market. So we talked about the appreciation market versus the.
Well, why don't you talk about that? Because I mean, East Bay, I'm sure, is heavy.
Well, because California's always been an appreciation market, which means that people would buy property, rent it out, and a negative cash flow, and what they were hoping for was the appreciation, because the housing is just rocketing there all the time. It's 6 to 10 year cycle, but it's always taken off. And so the appreciation market versus a cash flow market, where like we had a place in down Alabama. You put 20% down, bang, you get positive cash flow. So there are markets, depending on the market you're in, you have appreciation markets versus cash flow markets. So I'm saying Austin, I'm guessing, not familiar with the rents and the comparative rents and prices, but I'm going to guess that Austin is now an appreciation market. I don't know, you might have a comment on that.
And usually you can't get both. If you're in an appreciation market, you're getting the huge equity increases and you're not generally getting cash flow. And conversely, if you're in the cash flow market, usually getting some strong cash flow, but the growth in those areas are usually pretty stagnant or low. Go ahead.
Cash flow from renting.
Right, from renting the property. There are instances where you can get both. And actually, I feel here in Texas in general, there are a lot of opportunities where you can get both. Austin might, is leaning more in the appreciation route, especially in the city areas. And I'm sure y'all see those prices all the time. So those are hard ones to cash flow. But if you go out of just that core of Austin, I mean, there's a lot of, on the outskirts, there's a lot of opportunity at a lower price point where the appreciation will come in the long term. Yes.
Aren't you getting both? I mean, if you've got rental property, it's appreciating and you've got cash flow. I don't get it. You're saying you can only have one or the other.
No, well, you get, like, so in a cash flow market, like I'll go back to Alabama, the values don't go up that fast.
They go up very slow. Yeah. So like a 2% or something like that versus an appreciation market might be 12, 15 plus.
Yeah. It's just a
and that's just what we just said. There was a big general overlook within markets or sub-markets. And, you could have a cash flowing area or neighborhood where, it's a little bit more middle class, and then maybe you have a higher class type property that has high appreciation. But Texas in general, you can get both. We're in a very great spot. Yes, good.
So explain how an investor today might think about whether or not they should invest in real estate and what to look for, especially with some of the things going on with the stock market today.
Well, that's a wild ride.
Someone has a chunk of money and it's like, do I want to put more of it in the stock market now? Real estate, like how do you make those decisions?
Well, it's just a comment on just what 80% of the rentals in the United States are by what's referred to as mom and pop operations. So people own one rental house or a duplex or maybe a 4-unit building or maybe 2 houses. But 80% of the rentals in the United States are mom and pop operations, what they're referred to as. And so if you hire somebody, like we did everything, but there are people out there who will manage the property and service it and the whole thing. Like we have somebody doing that in Alabama. They handle everything. All I go do now, it's great. All I do now is go and take money out of the account. That's it. That's all I do. So, and pay taxes.
But should have said that one first.
Yeah. But that's the thing, is just getting the right manager. You guys could speak more to managing, properties for people, because I can't speak to that because we just manage our own.
Well, the market in general is a very unknown place. A lot of ups and downs, a lot of uncertainty. Right now, the big talk is the tariffs and the responses to that. And then bond yields have been going up. There's a lot of things that have been happening that's very interesting. And I think one of the ways to look at it, and the way we look at it, is just acquiring assets, tangible things, and especially with inflation over the last few years has been very high. So trying to be out of cash positions and actually owning stuff is really a good way to try and protect your purchasing power. Real estate is just one of those avenues. There's numerous avenues. Another one that we look at is precious metals. There's other ones, crypto, of course, and other things. But with real estate, there's a lot of advantages with real estate. With real estate, the tax code is written very favorably. You can claim depreciation against your income, which lowers your taxes. You get your tenant that you have, if you have cash flowing, they're the ones that are paying down your mortgage, so you have built-in equity over time. You have that consistent cash flow if you're a buy and hold, so you have that consistent income stream. And then if you hold it long enough, you also have that equity growth as well. So there's a lot of benefits with that. And another really important aspect is the fact that you can take loans on your real estate. So by taking loans on your real estate, you can increase your return percentage, and it allows you to acquire more assets. So those are all some strong benefits in the real estate realm, and it's clearly been around for a reason.
We also do rentals just because it's the slow term. You can make a lot of money doing flips, but it's like another job. So for us, our main goal from 2014 when we first met was to have financial freedom and cash flow. So if we have the financial freedom where we're making $10,000 a month on all of our properties, because it's payday, which the first of the month is always a fun day of the month. And it's like if we're making $10,000, but our expenses are only $5,000 a month, which obviously is not reality, but you get the point.
That was pre-Hillary, those expenses.
Probably true. But you get the point. Like if you're making more than your expenses, it's kind of like we can do whatever, and we've retired ourselves young. So that's the whole point. But in a down market and in an up market, rentals are secure, just because in a down market, when you're losing your home to foreclosure, you still need to rent somewhere. So rentals actually in a down market go up on price. So it's just like a safer avenue in terms of how we choose to do it. Now, like he said, there's a lot of avenues. I know people that do short-term Airbnb, and that's like, to me, that's hospitality, not necessarily investing. But there's just a lot of different ways. We just prefer the slow and steady, and that's what we've been doing for the last 10 years.
Just to comment about, go ahead, Ron. Yeah.
I'm not sure about the laws in Texas. I know the whole story is in Oregon. How do you deal with delinquent tenants that you need to evict? Is it an easy process in Texas?
We just send Hillary to their door, and that usually.
We're so
String them
used to evicting at this point. I mean, there's a process, right? And it's not the most fun process. You first, there's like a certain order in which you have to do things, like give the notice to vacate. They have X amount of days to get out. If they don't, then you have to go file, a court order and file for their eviction. And that takes a couple weeks to get a court date. I mean, there's a whole thing. And we've had our fair share of tenants that know how to fight the system, and they're like professionals in doing it. We just hire people who help us navigate that for us. Just honestly,
So 5 days late, you send them a letter, a notice to vacate letter.
I mean, the typical time from the time
like 2 weeks
Yeah.
or 2 months, maybe a month.
guys out.
So worst case, well, kind of a good scenario, probably about 2 months. Worst case scenario, maybe 4 months, give or take. Depends.
Yeah, I was going to say 90 days, so that's average.
And sometimes, you communicate with them, they just
leave.
move out on their own, or you come up to an agreement, those type of
You can
things.
offer like cash for keys, like just move out. I mean, it might be $500 to evict somebody, but I'll give you $250, just get out. Like, I don't know. That's probably not going to happen, but it could happen.
And the the important part with that too is one of the main avenues to minimize the eviction is how you screen them on the tenant placement. And you're not going to be perfect. Your people are going to get by. You might, things are not going to be perfect. But if you do a diligent job in that end, you can really screen a lot, and you can set yourself up. And you also need to be diligent when they pay late to initiate that process with the notice of vacate and other items.
Like immediately, day 4.
Comment going to that like you said, screening is really important. We got paid all the way through COVID. Nobody welched on their rent. You're talking about here in Texas, you can actually get people out. In California, they have a right to stay almost invariably. One guy's comment to me goes, "Well, you be careful investing in real estate in California because you're going to be in the life estate business," and we kind of are, because they have a right to stay. Although we have good tenants, we got paid. They're good tenants. We picked them. We do, like, we talk to them individually. When you interview them, you gotta look in their eyeballs, make sure they're telling you the truth. One thing I always did was, when they left, I'd go out and look and see what kind of car they're driving to make sure.
The car is a really good indication.
Yeah, it's a big. It
And how they
gives you an
keep it clean
idea
inside.
if they have money, if they're driving some old beater. You got to be careful. We've even ran into one guy who was in bankruptcy because we talked to him and went through it. He was honest, and we said, this guy's going to be a good tenant.
Make sure to ask us before the end here what our worst case scenario was with one of our properties. What was your question?
Top 5 things you look for that would say that would disqualify a candidate.
So that we look for to keep them, or just disqualify?
There will be 5 things that would say
Not enough
this
income.
is a good one.
So you can speak on your process, but our process is they need to see the property before they sign a lease. If they are like really urgent, like we need to move in today, that's a red
Like
flag.
I can move in yesterday.
Yeah, like that usually
know
means
why.
some sort of distress, like they didn't plan properly, that kind of thing. We have them fill out an application, some important questions. Well, with the application, they provide their ID, their social security card, at least 3 months of income, and we review all that. But we also want to know the other occupants that are going to be in the property. We also find out like pets and things like that. We work with a lot of our applicants, given their situation. Like if they have one thing that comes out, like one kind of bigger thing, maybe even a felony. We've rented to felonies in the past. The way we handle that is we increase the deposit, and that's usually a really good filter in itself. So we might, if they have one major thing or like one or two little things, we'll double it. We'll go up to triple it or even more sometimes. And so that in itself, if they had to bring 4,500 to move in, they usually don't have that if they're, displaced or whatever. So that's an eliminator in itself. But we've had just a house that we recently were remodeling right now. We've had 2 people apply for it, and we've denied both of them. And I want to get it rented. But like one of them was like, he had like a DUI, possession, and like terror of the family.
I don't want smokers.
So
I don't want animals. We used to allow animals.
Yeah, we're very particular with the animals.
We had 10 years of knowing like what's a headache and what's not a headache. Animals are a headache.
Yeah.
They destroy everything.
But you need to do a background check. And we do credit checks sometimes, but generally not, because our properties are more like B class type, C class properties. But that's another filter that you can use to get people out.
Yeah, we definitely ran credit checks on everybody. Yeah. So, but going back to as investing in individual property as an individual investor, like going back to the mom and pop, a lot of people I knew years ago, and they would buy a house and rent it out, and then they'd pay off the mortgage, and then when they retired, they would have no mortgage, and they get the cash flow from the properties. You'd have a inflation protected cash flow, in retirement, and it's a good supplement to whatever else you got going on. It's a long-term plan, but I've seen it work. I've seen people do that, and the problem, I'm only a little bit bitter because we're in rent control in Oakland, and we're going backwards. So, which we bought all this stuff to have a tax or a inflation protected cash flow. We've sold about half, but right now the realtors won't even take the listing if you have a tenant in it. They won't even talk to you, and so we're just waiting for our opportunities to get out. But it's cash flow is good. It always has been. That's that's why we got in it. So, and my partner manages it on site. I'm here. I do all the accounting and distributions and things like that. So. I handle. So my father always said, "Trust everybody, keep them in front of you." I handle all the money. So
that's a good setup. So we talked about when you take the application and when you're doing that initial processing to try and pick the right person to have them in. But that's just the start of the relationship. And generally it's a long relationship. So how you maintain the relationship moving forward also can be can lead in a positive direction or a negative direction. You want to be present. You want to be there. You want them to know that you're around, that you're, hovering in a sense, because you don't want them to get too comfortable or think that you're, lackadaisical and just not caring about your property, because then they'll take more and more freedoms, and those freedoms can converge into the financial aspect where, hey, if they've been paying on the 1st, now they're paying on the 7th, now they're paying on the 13th. And that definitely happens. So if you're in a scenario where you're collecting your payments, you want to definitely be very particular. So for us, rent is due on the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, you have to pay rent. Late fees start on the 4th. And by the 4th, we're calling everybody and just seeing where they are if they haven't paid, and establishing payment plans if that's necessary. By the 10th is when we're initiating notice to vacates, 10 to 15th, depending if they're a little bit further property. And so then we start the notice to vacates. And then after that, if we don't have like a promising situation, then we'll file with their precinct, where in San Antonio there's 4 precincts, but we'll file for court date. And then at that point, and you can always go to the court date, win the judgment, win the whole court, and then still decide that, hey, we'll still work with you because you were able to pay all your arrears and work with them. So you don't have to kick them out. So there's and even you winning the court date, they don't have to move out. Then you would need to get a writ of possession. That's a whole nother level where you
If
have
they don't move out, you now have to go back and hire the constable to physically come and remove them. And then you have to hire like a locksmith and junk removal, and it's a whole thing, and put all
Oh.
their shit on the side of the
So, real quick story.
and
just
not
on
to get
that.
shot.
There was a property that we purchased where the house was a hoarder, and we partnered with the owner, so we did like a joint venture. And she had sold the property to him, owner finance. He couldn't pay, so she foreclosed on him. But he didn't move out, so then she did the eviction. There was so much stuff. When we showed up with the constable with 5 guys to clean up everything, he said, "No, we can't do this. You don't have enough people to clean it up." So we had to reschedule, which was like another 2 weeks, and I had to show up with 11 guys. And we had to make sure that we cleaned out the entire property within 2 hours. So
And
we
he
were,
came
like,
home,
throwing-
and I was like, stripped down naked
yeah, and
in
actually
the garage. Don't
one of
come
our
inside.
contractors brought
Kid.
his son, so his son was learning
Like
firsthand, which was
11.
great. Yeah. But we were throwing things out of the 2-story window to like get in the yard. I have photos and videos, so if you come up to me, you can ask me.
Or when you're foreclosing or getting a house back, and then you get in the car and you realize, why is my husband all like things are moving all over him because he's kind
Well,
of infested with fleas.
That was at the very beginning.
This was
That our
this
first
was
house.
Martin Luther King, sketchy AF in San Antonio. Like, you don't want to be there after a certain hour. And I was like, get out of the car, get out of the car. He was like getting naked in the street because we found
I
him
was getting
for
excited.
we found him for weeks. And then we got home and he was driving home in his underwear, and I was like, all of it's going in the wash. I mean, like, we were finding fleas for weeks.
Yeah.
we
The
have
fleas weren't in the house, they were in the yard. So in the house, I'm like, oh, we're good. But no.
No.
I was definitely covered.
That was
and
our
I
very
realized-
first house, and I'm glad we do not own that anymore.
She
I
was
never
happy
want
the
to.
day
I
that
never
sold.
want to own a house on that street ever again.
The drug house.
Yeah, the one that we sold, that we 1039 exchange. Remember they had drugs in the trees?
Oh, well, that was so.
Drugs in the trees?
Yeah,
Well, they hid it.
they thought they were hiding it.
They're like, they're outsmarting them cops. Nobody's going to climb up here.
Found it.
Yeah, and it was crack, and so. But they moved out. They wouldn't. They never not paid.
They didn't need the house. They had the
We
trees.
we've never had to evict anybody in all of our years. Yeah, we didn't evict them. We just said move, and they said okay, and they moved. So,
Well, then you can, have the cops come.
so,
That might have helped.
so yeah, but yeah,
That was-
that's we're lucky though. We have never dealt with eviction.
That's
in
impressive.
all the years I've been doing this. So
You've
it's-
had
that goes
quite
to
a number.
screening.
Quite a few.
Yeah,
Quite a few.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Katie mentioned a really good advantage of real estate as well, which is the 1031 tax deferred exchange. And that's if you hold a property over a year, if you sell it, then you can roll the capital gains of that property into the next property and not pay any tax on it from that sale until you sell that future property. But what a lot of wealthy people do is they just 1031 to the next
Everything.
property over and over and over, and they just keep rolling it over. So it's well, no, you can go from one to like a duplex, and there are even ways where you have.
No.
you can actually split it because the exchange is first. The 1031s are actually kind of hard to pull off because you have when you sell the property, you have 90 days to identify the property that you're buying, and you have 180 days to close. And so what happens is people go a lot of times when somebody does 1031, they have on other parts of the sale there's 1031s going on, and if one falls through, I've seen this 100 times. The whole deal falls through. Everybody's trades fall through because one 1031 exchange falls through. And I've seen people buying stuff unseen, just say, I got to buy as many houses as I can because I got so many days to identify and so many days to close. They panic. And so they're really hard to pull off to do it well. The way that we did it, we did one 1031 exchange, is that we identified the place we wanted to buy. I got a friend of mine to buy it. I paid him a fee, and then we closed ours and did an exchange. So he just bought it ahead, and then we exchanged into it, and we just paid him a fee to do it. So
Is there, do you have to live in the house? I remember Terry saying something about
no, 1031 is a commercial. It's a investment property exchange.
okay.
There's a different one though if you live in your personal home.
That's-
I think for 2 years.
Yeah.
I was going to point out there are also people who own their real estate inside of IRAs.
Self-directed.
So that's a really common strategy.
I'm sure. I'm not familiar with how it works.
So yeah, you can convert your IRA or 401k into a self-directed. There's a lot of companies that do that and specialize in that. And then you can, when it's self-directed, you can put really any asset into your retirement account. And so what a lot of people do is they purchase properties and then they put it in their IRA to grow it. And even more so, what's a really common strategy is we've been talking about rental properties where you buy it, you get a tenant and you cash flow it and you own the property. There's another strategy that's called owner finance where you sell the property owner finance. So you own it, then you sell it to a person that cannot qualify for a loan. They pay you a down payment and you turn into the bank. They become the owner and you become the note holder like Wells Fargo on the property. And they pay you a down payment and a monthly payment every single month on an amortization schedule. And people put their owner finance properties in a Roth IRA, very, very common. Yes, Kurt.
How would you give a loan to someone that doesn't qualify?
So there's a lot of people, especially in Texas, that don't qualify for loans because they might be illegals. They might just get paid cash.
They might have
not-
just had bad credit, like when you're young and you're dumb and you buy shit you're not supposed to and you don't pay it back. Like you just have bad credit. That doesn't mean they're like not hardworking or they don't make the right income. A lot of these people actually have like 50K just under their like that's their down payment. And the beautiful thing about owner finance is if we sell you our house owner finance, you give me your $50,000 down payment and then you turn around and don't make your payment. Well, I get to foreclose on you, take the house back, and I keep your 50K. So usually these people that are putting so much money of their hard-earned money into this house, they're not going to mess it up. They're going to
They
hold
usually
on to that.
improve it because
They're usually
the
like the
owners.
best tenants. We still have an owner finance that we sold 10 years ago, and this lady still pays. I forget about it because every month it's like she's never missed a payment. Her husband died in the middle of that trend. Like since owning it, she's never missed a payment. And like a lot of times these people just want a chance to have a home and they just know they're not going to qualify through a regular bank because their credit's messed up.
And that type of business actually goes up in a down market because there's fewer people that can qualify for loans and there's a high demand of people that want to own property but they can't get a loan. Yes, Savvy.
Can you talk about that, own a home, and then I guess you have to live in it for 2 years, and then you can move into another home.
Yes. So my
Tax exclusion you're talking about?
I don't know, I tried to ask you about that.
Well, because I think you're confusing because before they did the $500,000 tax exclusion for a couple, it's $500 for an individual, it's $250. So if you buy your house and then whatever amount of money you make, you get to exclude $250,000 before you pay any taxes as an individual. As a couple, you get to pay it's $500. Before that, the law was that you had to own a property for 2 years, then you had to buy one of equal or increased value. And if you owned it for 2 years, then you just
But it was
rolled
your
forward.
personal home.
Your personal home,
you
yeah.
live
I'm talking
in.
about personal, not an investment home. So your personal home, you own it for 2 years, then you could roll it into the next one, and then when Katie and I were doing the house flipping, we rolled it all forward. Then when they did the $500,000 exclusion, we sold the house and we cleaned out all the profits. We didn't pay any taxes on it. So, but they changed the law. So I think you're mixing up the thing. So. We're getting
I was going to say too, just going back to the self-directed IRA, so Marco and I purchased all of our properties that we've ever purchased, which I don't even know how many at this point, but all of our properties 100% have been purchased through private money. So you can go through like a regular lender and, buy a property conventional or whatnot. But we just network and purchase everything. But a lot of our lenders are in a self-directed IRA, and that's how they lend to us. There's a lot of rules around it, but you can't like lend to family. There's certain parameters. So a lot of our lenders are just people who, have known us for a long time, and then they're trying to just get their money to work. So the self-directed IRA is just a really good way to structure it, I guess. I I mean, I don't know. There's benefits for everything, but
Well, that goes to purchasing also because there's a huge advantage to paying cash, which if you have a hard money lender, it's cash and quick close, 10 days. Like for us, because we don't do any, we don't ask for repairs or anything. When I walk through a house, I know exactly what needs to be done. Doesn't take me very long. And so, it's like you go in with all cash, 10-day close. We've bought stuff way cheaper than other people made offers because we were a quick close with a clean offer with no contingencies at all. But the hard money, then once you get in, then you can refinance it and pay off the hard money because you want to pay off the hard money because it costs you a higher interest rate is what it does.
As a real estate investor, what kind of professional services do you buy from other people in order to keep your business running well and I guess what aspect of the stuff do you add to it?
We are the real estate investors, my partners. We do everything.
Okay.
I'm an accountant who does our taxes. That's it. We do everything. We do all, like I said, we're contractors, brokers license. We did everything. We didn't sub out anything. Well, I mean, if we did a big project, we might bring in a sub to do certain trades. But I'm saying as far as any type of management and stuff, we did everything top to bottom. Like I say, we squeeze every dime out,
You have to figure out what your comfort level is, how much you want to do, how much you don't, because it could easily become a job and then you were doing it to be free, but then it becomes a prison. And we've done our own versions of that.
Toilet overflows at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, we try and hire as much as we can. We still do a lot, but we have kind of like a property manager that oversees our properties. We have a person focusing on tenant placement. We have 2 maintenance guys that kind of run around and look at all of our properties.
we have a bookkeeper.
We have a bookkeeper.
We have
CPA.
a couple of virtual assistants in the Philippines, like 3, I think.
Yep.
We have.
And then we have people in their trades.
I have a title company that I work with exclusively.
Right. We have an attorney, though we're transitioning attorneys. So attorney is another one for all the legal documents. So really any and all aspects of it is, and we're still trying to hand off more. Like we do the evictions we hire somebody for the evictions, but we kind of initiate it. That's something we would want to give away more. But the more giveaway, the better. So she can sip Mai Tais on the beach or
I
something.
don't even drink. But I would sit by the beach.
Yeah. Okay. A ginger beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How proactive are you? I mean, let's say somebody flushes something they sincerely did not know I shouldn't flush that. Do you give them a list and say, hey, these are things you can't flush, or do you wait for them to screw up and then do the damage?
It's a little bit of both. You try and teach them, tell them from the beginning. This is the way we're expecting you to.
Don't flush diapers.
Yeah, but
You would think that's common sense.
Yes,
Or Q-tips, they get stuck.
I haven't seen Q-tips.
And then stop.
I mean,
yeah, Q-tips, yeah, and T-shirts. I had one guy flush a T-shirt down the toilet.
That's the thing.
Yeah, don't flush T-shirts down the toilet. It's good.
That's going to happen regardless. You want to again try and pick the right people that have that level of common sense and courtesy to treat your property.
Which you don't know. I mean, you don't really know.
Yeah. And on the rehab, there's some things that you might want to do to set yourself up. So as an example, plumbing right there. A lot of the older homes don't have a clean out. So during your rehab phase, you would install a clean out. So then you could properly snake the line and it's not as expensive versus digging up the pipe for a clog or something like that. So you want to kind of foresee some of these things and try and minimize the potential damages. Another thing you want to do in the rehab is you generally want to fix everything. Instead of keeping an old dishwasher or an old stove, it's better to replace it with new. And there are definitely times where you might want to keep it, your budget's tight or whatever it might be, but the overall mentality is to fix everything and do everything new, because when you're holding a property, you get 2 sets of phone calls. You get one set of phone call which hovers around the person, their delinquency with payments or their troubles or whatever there might be. But the other set of phone calls are the maintenance phone calls. So if you fix everything in the beginning, then you dramatically reduce your maintenance phone calls. And just getting somebody sent out there to look at the problem is $150 to start. So that's one of the things you want to be mindful of in the beginning. A lot of these things you try and look at and work on from the beginning or the early stages.
Yeah, we tell our tenants, if the place is on fire, call the fire department. Don't call us. If somebody's getting shot, call the police. I don't want to hear about it.
And in Oakland,
But
that happens.
if in Oakland that happens.
I lived in Oakland for 5 years.
But if the water is
college.
leaking, you call us right now, because that can be a big problem. Is leaking, water leaks.
Yeah, out of all the trades, you got electrician, foundation, HVAC, roof, plumbing,
Pest.
and then you have like your cosmetic and pest and stuff. They're all generally equal. They're all important aspects of your home, but plumbing is the most important, because when you have a plumbing problem, that could lead to other damages with the property. I mean, you could have one broken pipe under the kitchen that's constantly leaking, and then now that caused a foundation, which then also affected the roof and messes up lots of things. And even just a tunnel to get under the kitchen is usually not an easy thing to do.
And if you're fixing foundation slab, you're busting holes in the interior as well as the exterior. So then now you have to replace all your floors, which then can shift the walls, which can shift the roof, which we've had happen before.
Yep.
Where we had to pay for a whole new roof because the foundation shifted it so drastically.
That was early. That was a nice surprise. So now
We've had a lot of nice surprises over the decade.
Yeah, so you make sure to do the roof after foundation work.
Yeah,
That's important.
idea.
And real quick, I'll get your question. Also, if you ever fix foundation, there's two things you want to make sure that you do. You want to get an engineer report. Well, actually three things. An engineer report. So you have an engineer that looks at it, makes sure it's structurally correct and sound, the work was done properly, and that makes it easier for you to sell in the back end. You want to get a warranty as well. That makes it easy to sell in the back end. But you also want to get a hydrostatic test, and a lot of people skip that step or aren't knowledgeable about it. And that's basically where they plug up the plumbing lines and they fill up the plumbing system to see if the water level drops. And if it doesn't, then everything's intact. But if it's dropping, then there's a break somewhere, which is relatively common when you're moving foundation. And that's very important to fix.
Before you fix
So
the foundation.
when you touch certain things, you want to make sure you're touching other things, or at least, inspecting or looking at it. Oh, and you had a question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems like to me, construction in Texas is pretty boring to get with.
Pretty boring?
Yeah,
Poor-
it's boring. I see
poor.
houses without gutters, and I guess the most damning thing I can say is, I know more people in Texas who've had frozen pipes than I ever did in Ohio and West Virginia. And they have a lot more opportunities to have frozen pipes up there.
Well,
So why is that?
well, first of all,
Shitty construction.
First of all, I agree with you in that I'm coming from California. I've not been impressed with the construction here. And I do service work at people's. I've been all over, up in Wimberley and up north, and I do work all over the place. And I've not been, two things. One, not impressed with the construction work, but two, the speed at which it gets done is very slow. I've watched houses just be empty and sit there for a long time. And so it moves along very slowly, but I agree with that. But what was your second part?
The frozen pipes.
The frozen pipes. So, because the difference though is here, they're not built to freeze in Virginia and Colorado and, where it freezes. They're built to handle it. It's not built here to handle the freeze. So
I think that's
why when it
that's
gets
very
cold,
true.
they have a problem.
Especially the older homes. We had one year where we had 6 breaks across all of our properties. So yes, but that also taught us that, that year we didn't really prep for it. So like this last winter or November timeframe, I made our maintenance people go to every single property, walk the exterior of the property. We did some exterior repairs. We also checked every spigot, covered each spigot. And, some properties weren't properly, or pipes rather, weren't properly covered. So we did all that. Also transitioning the pipes from old pipes to PEX has been a big difference too, because those are the pipes that expand and contract in the
PEX won't burst in a freeze.
Yeah.
And they'll do 4,000 freeze-thaw cycles before they crack. So that's longer than I'm going to be alive.
So we don't think of the cold here. We're mainly thinking about the heat. So, but to the construction thing, it's, yes, maybe generally the construction's not that great, and generally people are slow and behind schedule and whatnot. But really it comes down to like who you hire and how you adhere them to what you agree upon. not only on timeline, but in addition to that, just a checking of their work. We've definitely had times where we trust the person or we get lazy and we just pay them out. We didn't necessarily check it and you get burned that way. But if you want to maintain a certain quality, just going sure and showing your face and they know that you're going to come out will train them to want to operate and finish their work at a certain level. So we were actually getting towards the end here. We're wrapping up. Did you want to say one more thing, and then we can take one or two?
No, I don't know unless somebody's got one last question to throw up. So,
Yes.
Debbie,
So if I have to hire a contractor, how should I pay for the work?
don't
Like let's say I had to hire a contractor to remodel the shower.
Never
Don't-
all up front.
don't
ever.
pay up front. Pay a deposit, and then you should have progress payments. So you pay. So say you put, I'm just gonna make up numbers, $1,000 down, and then the progress should be okay. When they reach this particular point, then they get. This is how I structured it when I was a contractor. How I structured it. Okay, so they reach this particular point, they get this much money, but that only pays them for the stuff that's done. So then we get to the next point, then they get another progress payment. So you do progress payments, you don't do, because most contractors are not, they can't go until, they can't do, like get a deposit and do the whole thing. Unless it's a small job, do the whole thing. So you need progress payments based on what they've got done. You don't want to pay ahead, because what a lot of contractors do is called front loading. And it means they will bill you, it means more than they've gotten the job. So now they're ahead of you. You don't want to ever let the contractors get ahead of you.
You want to be ahead of them.
Yeah,
You,
want to be ahead
you
of
also
them.
don't want to pay obviously all up front because you will get burned badly. But you also want to hold a little bit back at the end because you want to make sure that like you can walk it finally and then like make sure any last items of repair are done before you give your last amount.
And what's really important too, you can have a whole contract, and it's best if you do that. You can. What's really important is to establish an end date. So when everything's done, I like to, when I talk to the contractors, I say, okay, when do you expect to be done? Okay, 2 weeks. So what day? And then I phrase it, worst case scenario. Like you're going to have delays, you're going to have problems. Tell me
Are
your
there
worst case
holidays
scenario. So it's
coming
actually
up?
2.5 weeks. Yeah, holidays. 2.5 weeks. So we're talking, May 15th. Okay, so May 15th is our date. Because they'll avoid giving you a date and then they keep pushing you out,
You can also implement it per diem. So like if you don't finish by May 15th, which is our agreed upon final day, you're paying whatever. You're like
$100 reduction every day.
like you're losing money and you might not make any.
And the other thing you want to do is get it, when you get the final payment, you want to get a lien release. A lien release. Because if they do work on your house, they have a right to lien the property. And so
Yeah.
when you pay them, you want a lien release from them that says they can't come after you for any money.
Yeah, that's
They're
a smart.
done.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Glad to discuss real estate.
Interesting. I hope
Hopefully you delve into the real estate world.